Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table A Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. This is Tim Birch, and today I've got a special guest. I'm trying to think how long ago I got to meet you. We're talking today with Mr. Aaron Leach from South Carolina, and I'm trying to think when I got involved with Trigstar 3-4 years ago that we connected.
That was about the same time I joined the NSPS Trigstar committee, about 4, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, there you go. So I've gotten to know Aaron a little bit. Like I said, Mr. Aaron Leach from South Carolina, and he's been very, very active in the South Carolina Society and within Trigstar within the last several years. And yes, I think Trigstar is going to weather the pandemic, but he's someone that's really been pushing this program along, and he sees a lot of the positives on it. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But Aaron, welcome to the podcast. And I guess tell us a little bit about you and who you work for and what you've got going on right now.
Sure. That's a lot to spit out, but I tell you, these introductions of mine just seem to get longer and longer as the years go by.
Well, that's a good thing.
You know, I currently am an owner of Rowe Professional Services Company. We are a company based out of Michigan, but have one office in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we are working on opening a second in South Carolina.
Nice.
So things are good. I started my surveying career I graduated from Paul Smith College in upstate New York. It was one of 2 schools that were ABET accredited for surveying. And from there, I went to work for a very small private land surveyor for a few years in upstate New York, and decided I really didn't like the cold in the winter so much. So in 1997, I uprooted and I came to South Carolina, and I worked for a survey firm here and got my license in 2000. And in 2005, kind of struck out on my own to start my own business. And in 2007, Rowe Professional Services acquired my firm.
Nice.
And that's how I came to Rowe. Very
good. So I guess what drew you into surveying to go to college to do that? I mean, what struck you about the surveying profession that made you want to go to college and pursue this?
Well, I've always loved the outdoors, and I've always loved math, and it just seemed like the best way to put the two together. But growing up, my grandfather was a very outdoors person. I mean, we went on 7-day camping trips in the Adirondacks,
Wow.
The Adirondack Mountains. So something like that takes a great deal of planning.
Mm-hmm.
So before the trip, which to me was about the funnest part of the 7-mile hikes we used to do, was planning it, because he'd break out the old quad maps and trace it with his little scaler, which I still have.
Nice.
And to me, that was just the fun part. We're all sitting around the table looking at these quad maps, planning our route and where we're going to go fish, and looking at the maps to do it. This is long before everybody had a phone with GPS on it. If you want to know where you were, you unfolded the map and you figured it out.
Exactly.
So that's what drew me to it. I love it.
Well, that's cool. That just, you reminded me, I had a conversation not that long ago. Doesn't matter where I had it, but you right there, the map reading and orienteering, that's a lost art that people just don't. Everything's like you said, on your phone, Google Maps, Google Earth, whatever, and boom, here I am, and this is where I got to go, versus reading that map and knowing how to get where you're going. by
Well, if
simply
the
reading
power
that map.
grid ever goes out, surveyors will finally take over the world.
There you go. I like it. I like it. Um, tell you what, tell us a little bit about how you've gotten involved with your state society and what kind of roles you play there in South Carolina.
Okay. Well, I got my start, when I first moved here to the Myrtle Beach area and started my own business. I wanted to get involved at the local chapter level, just because to me, there is no greater wealth of knowledge than sitting around that table talking to some of those surveyors at the time. I think, 28 when I first got my license. So I enjoyed it and kept going back. And, pretty soon I was vice president and, became president. Once I became president, I was our chapter representative on the state level. And that's how I got involved in the state level and saw how that operated. And again, loved it. Got on the board and moved my way up. I am now a past president of the SCS PLS.
Nice. Very good. Well, and I guess tell us, as far as, South Carolina society, I mean, what does the value of membership mean to you within a state society? I mean, what does that provide?
Well, it goes back to, something I was taught a long time ago by a mentor of mine. We'll talk about that later, but you got to give back. The better you are, the more you give back. Yeah. And, we as surveyors, we really need to ensure the next generation is on board. And, your state society, your national society, we're the ones working to make that happen, as well as, just the lobbying interest, looking out for the legal and legislative portion of it. Right. You need a strong society to make that happen.
Agreed.
And you've got to have the right people, the dedicated people to make it happen. If you're just a club getting together and having drinks and dinner, you're not really doing much.
Sure. No, that's you're spot on, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think that's a message that is starting to get lost from a lot of our members. The reason that you belong to something isn't just to have the pin or whatever. It is about giving back and being that, since it's a volunteer organization. So no, you're spot on. I like that a lot. All right. So you started in New York, you've come down to South Carolina. All surveyors have some stories. Are there any milestone events that really shaped your career, that really said, something about your boundary retracement, or something about anything else that you're doing surveying wise? I mean, is there anything that really stands out as like, those were an important lesson that you've retained?
Okay, we might have to rephrase that question, but I'll give you the answer that I'm going to go with here.
Sure.
Which is going to lead me into the bulk of what I wanted to talk about as far as people who've influenced me.
Sure.
It's going to be a long story.
Nope, that's okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess that is the second part of it. Are some of these important lessons, are they because of role models? Are they because of mentors? So, that's exactly it. That's where we're leading to, is the importance of mentoring in our profession. And tell away.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, Rowe acquired my firm, and we're growing in the Myrtle Beach office. In the last 7 months, we've hired 2 surveyors, and we are hiring 2 more. They both just accepted. So we've been holding a lot of interviews, and in our interviews, our HR department starts out with a series of questions, and then we, the surveyors interviewing, have our questions that we put to them. And as I'm listening to the HR questions, I'm reading that person. Whether I'm interviewing you or playing poker against you, I'm going to read you. I'm going to read your facial expression, right, body language. Now, one of the questions is always, who influenced you the most in your life? And it amazes me that some people struggle with that question. And to me, it's it's John Matonich. It's all day long. It's John Matonich. You know, when Rowe acquired my firm, I was on the fence. I didn't know if I wanted to be a part of Rowe or go do something else. So like when it came down to the day of the decision had to be made, John called me at like 8 o'clock at night and said, Aaron, I'd like to talk to you. You got a minute? Now that turned into about a 2-hour conversation, but within 20 minutes, I was on board. The rest of it was, you know, talking about how we make it happen and then plans for the future. So about 3 months later, John came down to visit the office, and I had no idea he was coming. But he had brought Kurt Sumner with him. So I walk in the office fresh out of the field, mud from the knees down. So I'd left my socks and boots outside, and I was in flip-flops. The first time I met the CEO of my company and Kurt Sumner, I was in flip-flops. And they're both just staring at my feet. Kurt, with a surprised look on his face, turns to John and says, I guess we are at your beach office, huh? Apparently he'd have said to Kurt, you know, I'm going to my Myrtle Beach office. Why don't you come with me and bring your surfboard? So yeah, that was my first meeting with him. And just, you know, since then, he's been a great, again, you know, you go back to those old surveyors at the chapter meetings, there's no greater asset, no greater fountain of knowledge. I mean, he's just there for you. I could call him at 8 o'clock right now, and I'm sure he'd answer the phone.
Yep.
You know, even though he's retired, but he's just a good friend and great man.
Well, I guess a very quick story on my end. I mean, it was 4 weeks ago, whenever I was up in Wisconsin. I spent a lot of time with John. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and you know, taking on this new role as executive director, we talked quite a bit. And
great conversation.
Oh yes, he's definitely a sage, and I don't, you know, I too, probably not to the degree you do, but I truly appreciate him. He's become a pretty good friend over the years. And so, yeah, no, I can definitely see that. And having him as the big boss, that would be pretty cool. So,
yeah. And he's the one that really encouraged me, you know, because like I said, at that time I was active in my local chapter, but he's the one that really inspired me to go on, you know, become the president, then get to the state society and move up.
Right.
You know, his advice to me was, you know, be better today than you were yesterday and have a plan for tomorrow. And the better you make yourself, the more you give back.
Yep. That sounds like John. And he's a hell of a woodworker.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
Holy cow, is he a hell of a woodworker.
Yeah. I see some of his stuff on Facebook.
Yep. So I guess that kind of leads me into the next, I mean, I'll say question, but really discussion. And, you know, I've had these conversations going over the last few weeks about role models, mentors, and how important they are. Obviously he made a huge impression on you. So I'm assuming that drives you to want to be that type of person to your staff and the people you're bringing up through the ranks.
It sure does. I mean, and that's key, that we have to do that as professionals. You know, we have to be bringing up the people that are going to replace us, because we're not going to be here forever.
No, exactly. Well, and it's interesting you say that, because another conversation I've just had, you know, and unfortunately with the evolution of the equipment and basically, for lack of a better term, one-man crews on a lot of these things, there's no mentoring going on when there's a one-man crew, especially with a newbie. They're learning to which buttons to push, but they're not learning too much more than that. So
I do see a lot of that, but there's a lot of industries with that same thing. You know, you look at the U.S. auto worker being replaced by robots.
Absolutely.
You know, same thing.
Nope, you're right. We're not unique in that respect. So it really does fall back on us to show the way, you know. And I guess that's something I struggle with occasionally, is like, you know, yeah, I've been doing this a long time, but really, what do I know, and why would somebody want to listen to me? Well, we don't realize what we've absorbed over the years from those mentors, from those role models, and that's what we are now. And we've got to be able to pass that on. So you're exactly right. And um, all right, so let's switch gears a little bit here, and let's jump into Trigstar,
Yeah.
because you know what, it's something I've been revitalized with, that coming out of the pandemic, we've got an opportunity here, once we can get back into schools and really get in front of the math and science classes, the teachers, the school counselors and such. Trigstar is such a great program. So I guess in your words, can you tell us a little bit about what is Trigstar and what it means to you as far as getting in and providing the opportunity to talk about what we do?
I guess I got to start at the beginning here with this. I got to tell you how I got involved with
Yes,
Trigstar. Because
please.
again, this
Yes.
is another good, funny story. And again, it goes back to my first meeting with Kurt Sumner when I was in flip flops. About 8 months after that, Kurt calls me. And now I call Kurt and John the two godfathers. Now, Kurt calls me and says, Aaron, I need a favor. And when one of the two godfathers says, I need a favor, you say, yes, sir, and you jump. So he said, I got this teacher in Myrtle Beach who wants to get his school involved in Trigstar. Can you go talk to him and help him out? And of course I said, yes, sir. Even though I didn't really know anything about Trigstar. I had heard of it, but I know that it had zero traction in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Which I will happily say we now do 5 schools a year.
Nice.
But that's how I got my start in it, because I knew nothing about it. So I called NSPS, talked to Trish. Trish said, let me get in touch with the Trigstar committee. And again, talking about very great, influential people. That's the old Trigstar gang: Tony Gregory, Jerry Juarez, Bob Miller, great folks.
Oh, yes.
So I attended one of their meetings, virtual, or I guess back in those days it was phone.
Oh, yeah. Conference calls. Yes.
Yeah. But, they explained it to me and I liked the idea. So I was on board. And I said, use the committee. If you need anything from me, just please let me know. And I hear Jerry Juarez in the background saying, welcome to the committee.
That sounds like Jerry.
So I'm on the Trigstar committee. But yeah, Trigstar to me, is a vehicle that gets us into the high schools to talk about land surveying. And it's a great enticement to the teachers to allow us to do that because of the monetary awards. And not only goes to the student, it goes to the teacher as well, because the teacher should be rewarded.
Right.
For teaching that.
Right.
So like I said, when we started here in South Carolina, it was that one school. But it's grown and it continues to grow. I mean, I'm in contact with 2 other schools, so we're hopefully going to be up to 7 next year.
Oh, great.
Now, the pandemic did set us back, even nationally. 2 years ago, we did not have a national exam because of the pandemic. We only had maybe 7 or 8 states compete at the local level. So it just wasn't feasible to have a national exam.
Right.
But that pandemic has forced us to do something that we've been talking about for years, which is to bring the test online. And so we, as the Trigstar committee, we met with 3 software companies to discuss how we do that. And there was what a difference in price and product.
Mm-hmm.
We saw, proposals from $185,000 a year to, $6,000 a year. So we obviously cannot afford that. But I likened it to, those 3 things I likened it to shopping for a used car.
Right.
You saw a Ferrari on one lot and a Pinto on the other.
Mm-hmm.
Which one are you driving away in? Well, unfortunately, the first year we did it, we drove away in the Pinto. So we did that as a pilot program for our local exam. We picked 7 high schools, scattered throughout the country. And we did our first online test last year at the local level. We cannot do that in the national level because of the securities just aren't there.
Sure.
So we have contracted now with ExamSoft, which was the Ferrari we saw in the first lot, to do our national exam. Now, number of tests we can do is 50, which we have 50 states. So if they all participate, we're covered.
Good.
And that was $6,000.
Okay.
But they have the securities. They have the browser lockdowns. They can watch the student through the camera on their computer. And they have an embedded calculator. We're still working on that aspect of it, whether or not they can use that embedded calculator. Because we do have calculator policies that can't be pre-programmed.
Sure.
And it's tough to monitor that. Now, if you do it in the high schools, usually the high school provides the calculator and the math teacher clears them.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have, securities, but when we go to the online, some of us really worry about that, but it's the future. We've got to do it.
I guess the question I have for you is, because I keep getting asked this question of, yeah, but the students that normally win, they take that, they win that money, and then they never have any interest in surveying. How important is that the winner doesn't go into surveying? And
to me, not at all, because as I said, the test itself, the competition is the vehicle to get us into the school to talk about surveying. If I've done that, I've accomplished my goal.
Yep. Well, good.
Now I had this one kid, he was a brilliant student, and I asked, he was our national, our state winner. Then he went on and he placed third state in the nationals. And I asked him, do you have any interest in becoming a land surveyor? And the kid almost laughed at me as he was saying, no, sir, I'm going to be an astrophysicist. Right.
Exactly. And, and we're not going to get those kids. Those kids they're destined for other places and other careers. But, and that's what, that's what I keep telling people is that, there's still a bulk of kids that you're talking to. You're not going to get the highest of the highs or the lowest of the lows, but there's a big chunk right there in the middle that still need to be challenged, that like to problem solve, that like to be outside, that like to mess with computers, that like to game and do these other spatial things
yes. And a lot of the people that seem to talk negative to me about Trigstar, they ask that, how many professional land surveyors come out of the Trigstar program? Well, I don't know, but how many party chiefs come out of it? How many crewmen came out of it?
Exactly. So that, that's, and then I like that you're on the same page there, because I really think that's, if we highlight on just the fact that, the vehicle that got us in the door was that competition, right, that allows us to deliver the goods. Okay. So what? Somebody, the cost of entry was the prize money, but we still got in the door and we could talk to that many kids. Worth every penny. Very good. Besides Trigstar, I mean, what other ways have you thought about that we can get the younger generations engaged in what we do? Are there anything that pops up in your mind that we can really get out there and really talk to the young students about what we do?
Well, there's a lot of ways. I mean, it doesn't have to be Trigstar, because Trigstar is a competition for high school students. Mm-hmm. But you sure can take one of those augmented reality sandboxes and go into a middle school, right, and talk to the kids about surveying. Because honestly, like that astrophysicist, he'd already made up his mind what he was going to do. So trying to reach him at that level it's too late. Right. You really got to start in the middle schools and even the elementary schools. That augmented sandbox that we built, mm-hmm, they love that.
Yes, it is a draw. It's like
a hands-on thing. Anytime you go speak at a school, you bring something with you. Mm-hmm. Don't just be, standing up there talking monotone. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to tune you out.
Right.
But you bring in an instrument and a robot or a scanner, and you show them a scan happen in real time, they love that stuff.
Yeah.
We as surveyors need to take every teachable moment there is. Again, with the Girl Scouts, for the tree badge, when we go from tree to tree, I introduce a surveying element to that. I don't care if you're at a church picnic and there's, kids around and you spy a piece of flagging hanging in a tree off in the distance. Tell them that this is a property corner. Let me tell you how I know that. Take every teachable moment you get and teach.
I know a lot of men in surveying that wouldn't even think about doing something like that. So
I tell you what, it's fun just to teach kids something. They sit there like little sponges and soak it up. They love it too.
oh, exactly. Okay, well, I guess this is going to get kind of into my final wrap up question then. Future surveying. How does the future look to you? Everybody's overworked, understaffed, a lot of tired people out there, but yet, I mean, it is a fantastic profession. We're going gangbusters.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you turn that around because that started a little negative.
Yes, well, that's just it. Everybody's so tired.
We're all busy, we're all working, and what pops into my mind is the words of John Matonich. It's a great day to be a surveyor.
Yes. You beat me to the punch. That's awesome. And I'm glad you did because we try to use that wherever we can. I am very bullish on where surveying is going with the demand. And I know we're still we're behind the 8 ball trying to find people. We're trying to get things done, but it is a good situation to have. I don't say good problem to have anymore because it's still a problem, but if it's a good situation to have, we just need to make sure that we do our job and get that next generation in to help learn what everything we've already been taught.
Yes, and the more surveyors we make, the more they're going to make.
Yes,
they're going to pass it on to friends and relatives and others. Somebody's going to see that somebody got a great job surveying and say, but you know what, I can do that.
Yep. Well, very good. Off recording, I already asked about how the golf game is. You said it's still a little chilly there, so it's hopefully gonna warm up and you'll be swinging sticks here shortly.
Well, at our South Carolina convention this week, Thursday in Columbia, it's going to be 85.
Oh, geez.
So we've turned the corner, I believe.
Oh, must be nice.
Time to dust off the clubs and get back out there.
Oh, very good. Well, make sure and tell the people down there. Like I said, I got a little presentation for them. I'm sorry I couldn't come down, and Allison did give me a rain check to come down for another time and do something in person. So
you are welcome anytime here, my friend.
Looking forward to it. So, well, keep up the great work with Trigstar and your South Carolina Society and everything at Row and with the Girl Scouts. I mean, keep up the great work. I can't tell you how impressed I am with everything you've got going on. And you know what? You're providing a great role model for people that bottom line is this is the way a surveyor should act and should pass on their knowledge. And kudos to you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate it. And I thank you for having me on here.
Well, all right. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week. Surveyor Says, we've got some great episodes. So wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure to subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.